This program was made possible by the law firm of Zalman and Schnorman, whose practice is limited to personal injury and insurance law.
Schnorman. Mr. Schnorman is a distinguished trial attorney, author, and lecturer. Each week, Lawline will bring you the most knowledgeable experts in the field of law today. And now, we introduce our guests and our host, Alan Schnorman.
Welcome to Lawline. Since his appointment as District Attorney of Queens County, Richard Brown has successfully turned the Queens DA's office into one of the top prosecutorial bureaus in the state. Today we'll talk to District Attorney Brown and find out about the crime-fighting strategy he has implemented that has dramatically increased the conviction rate of felons in Queens County. Hello, District Attorney Brown.
Hi, Alan. It's nice to be here.
District Attorney Brown, you used to be the judge of the appellate division.
Yes.
Do you mind if I call you judge?
It's fine with it.
Okay. Now, give me an idea. What's the status of crime in your county?
We have had some rather dramatic drops in crime complaints over the course of the last couple of years, perhaps even better than the rest of the city. Certainly violent crime is down significantly. Auto theft is down. We're down in just about all 7 of the categories that the FBI keeps track of, and that I attribute, I think, to a number of things. Number one, I think, is the lessening of the crack epidemic, as we've seen in recent years. I think it's the fact that we've got more cops on the streets now as a result of Safe City, Safe Streets implementation. We now have 38,000 cops in this city. They've become a lot more aggressive in terms of their crime-fighting strategies. That's helped. I think prosecutors have helped as well in terms of the fact that we go after the career criminal, the violent criminal. Those are the individuals whom we believe are responsible for most of the violent crime. We go after them, we enhance the cases against them, and then the end result is we put them away for long periods of time, and as a result, the level of violence has dropped.
Judge, in our society, we almost have like two opinions regarding the judiciary. On one hand, some judges want to be stricter. We have Judge Rothwachs, who in his recent book has said that he should do away with the Miranda warnings, that we're too lenient on criminals, that we should be stricter, that this is becoming almost a court for not the victim, but the criminal. And then we have judges on the other side, like Judge Baer in his first opinion, who felt that it was okay to run from the police in certain places in our city. What's happening? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think you've got to find a balance between the 2 points of view. I have a great deal of respect for both Harold Baer and Harold Rothwachs. They're both people that I've known during all of my years in the judiciary. I went to college with Harold Baer, and I sat alongside of Harold Rothwachs when I first served as a criminal court judge in 1973. It was he who broke me in.
But two different opinions here.
No question of that. My sense is that you work toward a balance somewhere in between. Certainly, I would not attempt in anything that I do to intrude upon the constitutional rights that individuals have under the state constitution and under the federal constitution. Yet by the same token, I, as a prosecutor, find myself vigorously prosecuting particularly violent crime. There's got to be a balance between the two, and that's what we try to do each day in our office.
Of course, victim groups are saying that the pendulum is swinging more to the career criminal, where criminals are getting off, where appellate divisions, or the court that you actually sat on, many times reverse lower court decisions on technicalities.
Very infrequently, and I think in most of those instances, the so-called technicalities that you point to are protections, if you will, that are guaranteed under the state and federal constitutions. And so I would say you're talking in terms of trying to balance the rights of victims and the rights of defendants, and I think we do a pretty good job of that in Queens, and I think the judiciary in Queens is particularly cognizant of that kind of balance. We have a 90% conviction rate in Queens County. We put violent criminals away for long periods of time. I'm very proud of the results that we've seen over the course of the last number of years in Queens.
Let's address that, the conviction rate. Many times you have police officers taking the stand, and you have jury nullification, where the juries themselves don't believe a police officer when he takes the stand and says, yes, I found him with the weapon in his hand, and all of a sudden the criminal goes free.
Again, that's not something that happens very frequently in Queens. It is happening in other counties. It is a process that has developed from what is commonly known as testifying, bending the truth, if you will. We try very hard to make certain that that never happens in our system in Queens, and the way we do that is by putting very experienced assistant district attorneys up front in the complaint room. And I think the cops in Queens know that they're going to be tested first off in the complaint room by an experienced DA who's going to make certain of the fact that they have a case that is provable in court and that they indeed are telling the truth and not bending the truth in any respect. And then, of course, by the same token, I think most cops know and understand in this day and age that they're going to be tested on both sides, not just on the district attorney's side, but on the defense counsel side as well.
It's been reported in some counties, not necessarily yours, police officers take the stand and when asked a basic question have to go to their memo book to see if they were at the scene of the crime, have to go to their memo book to see what they discovered at the scene of the crime, that they come in wearing dungarees and T-shirts into courts.
Well, at times that's necessary because the cop is an undercover cop and he's coming off the street, or he's a street crime cop who is traveling in plain clothes, so he appears in court in that fashion. But for the most part, I think the police officers are trained in such a fashion so that they respect the court system, respect the judiciary. We spend a lot of time in Queens doing a lot of training and teaching these days, not only of our assistants but also of young cops as well. I have a moot courtroom, for example, in my office. No one goes into the appellate division or the Court of Appeals anymore out of my office without first having been mooted by a bench of their peers. And similarly, we train cops now. We take young recruits and run them through our moot courtroom and give them a sense of what it means to testify and how attorneys will sum up to a jury and how they will present their cases.
You've become known as the hands-on district attorney. It's been reported that you go to major crime scenes and every homicide. Tell me, what do you get out of that?
Well, I get a great deal out of it because there's nothing like having a sense of what the scene is all about in terms of the prosecution of cases. I do indeed have a reputation of going to crime scenes. I live in Queens County. I've been brought up in Queens County. I know the county. I know the streets of the county. And as a result, I get to a great number of crime scenes, not only homicides and major crimes, but also those that are unpublicized as well. Last year, for example, I got to something like about 120 or 125 separate crime scenes during the course of the year.
Some people say the O.J. Simpson case was lost at the crime scene, that the evidence was not carefully marshaled, not carefully taken, as well as the testimony of the arresting police officers. How can you comment on that?
Well, I don't know that I want to comment on the O.J. Simpson case, but in general, I would say this to you. I think you're absolutely right when you imply that it's important that crime scenes be protected, and we make every effort to see that that is the case. If any individual attends at a crime scene, the mere fact that they are there, some piece of evidence is always moved in one respect or another. And what I try very hard to do when I get to a crime scene is to stay out of the way, to not enter that crime scene except to stay on the fringes of it, to make sure that I don't disturb anything. And there are always EMS personnel that get to homicide scenes, and they know and they understand that they cannot disturb the scene. And similarly, our arresting officers, our various police officers who are out there do the same. The fire department now, which is responding to major medical emergencies, traffic accidents, and things of that nature, legislature has been advised with respect to protecting crime scenes. They have guidelines in their patrol manual, and so I think everybody is very cognizant of the fact that crime scenes must be preserved until the crime scene unit gets there, till the medical examiner gets
And
there.
I assume that your people, when you're there, you make sure that everybody toes the line.
No question. The mere presence, of myself or my assistants, and I would tell you that we have writing programs in virtually every separate area where young assistant district attorneys and oftentimes much more experienced assistant district attorneys will get to crime scenes and will be there to record various things and events that occur at that occasion.
It's been reported that organized crime has their fingers into Kennedy Airport. What's the story on that?
Well, Queens is unique in the sense that we have the two major airports, Kennedy and LaGuardia. They are cities unto themselves. And we have found that that you're absolutely right, that organized crime is very, very much involved in the theft of air cargo. We have a very active investigations division, a very active airport investigations unit, which is separately funded by both the state legislature and the city council. We have a team of investigators who work closely with the FBI and with Customs and the Drug Enforcement Administration, the Secret Service, Immigration and Naturalization, all of the various agencies that are out there at Kennedy Airport, including the Port Authority Police, all toward the end of making certain that that crime does not have a holiday at those airports.
It always seems to me strange that, of course, I've heard about organized crime and the mafia since I can remember, and it's been for years before I was even born. How are they able to function in urban society as well as they do? It's reported the organized crime now is $1 billion industry.
Well, organized crime is into virtually anything and everything in which they feel they can raise large sums of money. For example, auto theft. When I was a kid growing up, a car was stolen to take a joyride, or maybe in a rare instance to be used in a separate crime. Today, auto theft is big business. What you have is cars that are worth $10,000, for example, being broken down into parts. Those parts are worth $40,000. You go ahead and find that organized groups run by organized crime have the stealers and the cutters and the distributors. They have the whole operation going. So if you go ahead and find that you're in an accident today and the front end of your car is damaged, and you go to your local body shop, that body shop may call the next morning one of these groups, and they will find that, well, they don't have that car available, but we'll get it for you. And the following morning in that body shop, they will have my car, which is identical to yours. And then they will stack up the various parts. They'll take the nose and give it off to the body shop. And then the next time someone calls, well, they have the rear fender or they have the bumpers or what have you. And it's all computerized, and there's a great deal of money to be made. And so what we do is we have a very aggressive auto theft unit. We go after people in the courthouses by asking for long jail terms. We run sting operations. We use our state's Organized Crime Control Act, which has enhanced sentences to get at the core group, the people that are running these kinds of operations.
And of course, that's only one industry.
That's true.
I know there's a federal now investigation regarding the garbage collection industry. There's been a whole thing with the seaport, where Mayor Giuliani has literally taken licenses away from reputed organized crime groups. I mean, is it just that they're all over our society, that you can't?
These groups go after any particular area in which they think that they can make money, and they are businesses. And another good example is what has happened in terms of air cargo thefts at Kennedy Airport. Big business, a lot of money to be lost. And we've gone after them, too, with undercover operations using sophisticated eavesdropping and all of the other tools that are available to us. Another area that organized crime has its fingers into in one fashion or another, oftentimes Nigerian groups, is credit card fraud, where they literally will steal your credit card identity, and using your identity start hitting up not only your individual credit card accounts, but they'll get into your bank accounts, your Social Security accounts, your pension funds, etc.
Judge, everybody is so concerned of their own safety and the safety of their families. Again, it's been reported that almost anywhere in New York City, including schools, subways, buses, people have guns. What's being done to limit the amount of guns on the streets?
Well, the problem with guns, of course, is the fact that we have freedom of movement throughout this country, and oftentimes in other states you have rather loose gun laws. You can go down into some of the southern states and purchase guns, and then they bring them right up the New Jersey Turnpike and sell them on the street. What's happened in terms of guns, however, is a great deal. I think we're spending a lot of time, for example, now in the schools, amongst young people, preaching anti-violence and say no to guns. I think the aggressiveness of the police department now is keeping guns off the street. The guy that jumped the turnstile in the past knows that if he's going to be stopped, and if he's got a gun on him, he's really going to be in trouble.
He's going away, right?
He's going away. So what happens is he leaves the gun at home, and if he leaves the gun at home and gets into an argument, well, then he is not in a position to pull the gun out and to cause violence.
We got to take a break now, but right after the break, we're going to talk about the capital offenses and the death penalty.
Fair enough.
You're watching Lawline. With us is Judge Richard Brown, District Attorney of Queens County. I'm Alan Schnorman, your host. Stay with us.
The air dances with the waters, which brings the rain that feeds the land, that is home to the animals. All life dances together.
In a world so connected, choosing one environmental cause can be hard. EarthShare is 40 environmental charities working together. You and your company can help by calling 1-800-MY-SHARE.
All life lives, or doesn't, together.
Excuse me, do you wear your safety belt?
Why, no, I don't wear my safety belt.
Thank you.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
Hello, you're watching Lawline. I'm Alan Schnorman, your host. Today we're honored to have the District Attorney of Queens County, Judge Richard Brown, with us. Judge Brown, right before the break, I had asked you about the death penalty. Now, there's been a fairly new law in New York State, a capital crime law, that if you commit certain crimes, you can be charged and receive the death penalty. One district attorney in Bronx County, District Attorney Johnson, has said he may very well not. He hasn't said he won't, but he may not implement that, at least in his county. How do you feel about that?
I, through the years, Alan, have not been a supporter of the death penalty as an individual. I, as you may know, served as counsel, for example, to Governor Carey, who was opposed to the death penalty. I don't believe it to be a deterrent. It takes from the prosecution of other violent crimes. There's always the question of making a mistake, morality and the like. But having said that, the legislature has now spoken, and I have an obligation to carry out the laws of the state of New York as faithfully and as wisely and as justly as I possibly can. And so under the circumstances, in an appropriate case, I'm prepared to ask a jury to exercise its discretion and impose the death penalty. The death penalty law, however, I think requires a fair amount of understanding by the general population. The law that was passed by the state legislature only applies in about 20% of the homicides that we see in New York State today. And they're very specifically set forth in the statute. The intentional killing, for example, of a police officer, a correction officer, and a judge, for example, or a witness, the torture torture, murder, those kinds of cases. And then in some instances, in felony murder cases, where it can be shown that there is an intentional act.
And there's a crime being, a crime other than the murder being.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, so that's about 20% of the cases. And we've got a two-step process. Once having acknowledged the fact that the case fits within that 20% window, then the next step is for the district attorney, the prosecutor, to make a judgment as to the appropriateness of asking for the death penalty in that particular case. And again, the statute is very specific in terms of the various things that you've got to take a look at. The character of the individual, his intention, his involvement in the crime, his background, does he have any prior arrests, his mental capacity. All of those things have to be taken into consideration before one seeks the death penalty.
But I understand it's within the discretion of the particular district attorney whether or not he's going to move for that particular indictment.
Within the guidelines as set forth in the statute. Now, the district attorney has a total of 120 days in which to make that judgment. And the reason that he or she is given that kind of time is because these are not easy decisions.
Of course, Governor Pataki literally removed District Attorney Johnson before the 120 days was even close to being up, and now his own Attorney General,
That's correct,
is taking over the prosecution, and DA Johnson is out of it. How do you feel about that?
Well, I would have hoped that the governor would have waited a little while and allowed District Attorney Johnson to exercise his discretion. He did say that he never said never. It seems to me, particularly coming from where I've come, having served as a counsel to a governor, that a governor ought to step very, very carefully in terms of intruding upon the discretion of an independently elected district attorney. The cases in which district attorneys have been superseded over their objection are very rare in New York, and this goes back historically. But yet, by the same token, I mean, we have a situation right now in which the governor, on the one hand, is obligated under the Constitution to faithfully uphold the laws of the state of New York, and on the other hand, you've got yourself a district attorney who says, under the Constitution, I have the right to prosecute all cases within my jurisdiction. And finally, all of this is complicated by a statute which gives to the district attorney 120 days in which to exercise his discretion.
But isn't he telling prosecutors around the state that if you come out with an opinion that you're not going to prosecute these cases in your particular county, I'm going to take care of it?
Well, I don't know that he's going quite that far. What he said is that he is prepared to take care of, to supersede any district attorney who will not uphold the law, who makes the broad statement that under no circumstances will I seek the death penalty. And other than Rob Johnson in the Bronx, I don't know that anyone else has said anything close to that.
And he hasn't said that. He said he'll consider it on an individual basis, and in fact, this very case, he may have.
That's quite possible.
Okay. Now, Governor Pataki has also criticized one particular judge for his ruling, which he felt was not within his discretion. And now he's seeking to have this particular criminal court judge removed.
Well, that matter, the matter involving Judge Lauren Duckman in Brooklyn, is now pending before the Commission on Judicial Conduct, and I think it behooves all of us to wait and see what it is that commission has to say. I think the thing that disturbs many of us, particularly myself as someone who sat on the bench for 18 years, is the intrusion upon the independence of the judiciary, the chilling effect that it has upon judges who then may feel that they have to look over their shoulder to make certain that an opinion that they're going to render, which they believe to be an opinion which carries out the law as they know it and understand it, is going to be second-guessed by a public official, by the media, and that troubles me to some degree.
Well, would it be your recommendation that at least politicians not go into the area of the judiciary and not comment on decisions and not ask for removal?
I think there's got to be a balance again between the right of any individual to criticize the judiciary or criticize a judicial ruling, and the independence of the judiciary, and the fact that certain kinds of comments, certain public dialogue will have a chilling effect upon the judge's ability to act impartially.
But the only thing is, just taking this one step further, if I may, Governor Pataki has said that if the Commission on Judicial Conduct does not remove Judge Duckman, then he will proceed and move to the Senate to have him impeached.
He has said that, but yet by the same token, it seems to me that what we all ought to be doing is awaiting the determination of the Commission on Judicial Conduct, which I would anticipate will be forthcoming in a relatively short period of time. Perhaps by the time this program airs, you may have seen that decision, and once having read that decision, perhaps all of us can then make some judgments with respect to what, if any, next step is involved.
Now, getting back to Queens County, you have started something unique in the county, a Special Victims Prosecution Office. Tell us about that.
Our Special Victims Bureau handles all of our sex crimes, our elder abuse, our child abuse, our domestic violence cases. And what we do is we have our assistants ride the cases. They are in the hospitals, they're in the precincts, they're in the homes of the victims. They become the victim's counselor, they become the victim's advocate, and they follow that case right from the beginning on through the grand jury process and through to trial. And the effect is really quite dramatic. I remember, for example, being in the 112 precinct one Saturday morning when they brought in 11 separate victims to participate in a lineup procedure involving a particular individual who was alleged, at that time he has since been convicted, to have committed various crimes, sex crimes. And in every one of those instances, the victim, when they walked in, scared to go forward, they saw my assistant, whom they had seen in their home or in the hospital or in the police precinct before, and suddenly they felt at ease. That's very, very important. We have, for example, a full-time social worker who does nothing but elder abuse cases. That's important. The whole area of child abuse is one of great concern, I think, to all of us.
Talk to us about spousal abuse. Are the laws on record now sufficient?
Answer is no. I would like to see us make some changes, particularly in terms of the enforcement of orders of protection. Right now, an order of protection is a mere piece of paper unless something happens, something like a vicious assault or a homicide.
Quickly, tell me, what is it like going from being a judge to being an appellate judge to being a district attorney?
Oh, it's been a wonderful experience for me, and one which I've enjoyed immensely. It's been great.
And where's the future going to be?
Right where we're sitting at the present time. We're very happy there.
District Attorney Richard Brown, Judge Brown, thank you very much for appearing on Lawline. And as always, this is Alan Schnormer. Thank you for watching Lawline.
You have been watching Lawline with your host, New York trial attorney Alan Schnorman. Mr. Schnorman will be back with you next week at the same time. If you have any questions about this week's program, please write to Lawline, 63 Wall Street, New York, New York, 10005, or call area code 212-432-9111.
This program was made possible by the law firm of Zalman and Schnorman, whose practice is limited to personal injury and insurance law.